So let's talk about what happens when a private party at a huge global bank goes, well, very, very wrong. We're talking a lavish celebration, a really shocking performance, and a walkout that just blew the lid off a massive cultural problem. You see this quote right here? "We are sorry for any offense caused." That's the official word from Credit Suisse. But a public apology like this from a massive bank doesn't just happen. Something pretty serious must have gone down to force their hand. So the big question is, what did happen? How do you go from a private party to a full-blown PR nightmare? Let's trace the steps and figure out what led to that very careful, very formal apology. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in November 2019. We're in Zurich, right in the heart of the financial world, at what was supposed to be this super glamorous party. And this wasn't just any party. I want you to picture this. It's a huge Studio 54 themed 60th birthday bash for the chairman of Credit Suisse. We're talking, 70s disco, wild costumes, the whole shebang. It was a private event, but oh boy, the fallout from it was about to become very public. Okay, so here's where things really took a turn. The New York Times reported on two performances that just lit the fuse on this whole thing. First up, a black performer comes out on stage dressed as a janitor and starts dancing. And then, a bit later, some of the chairman's own friends get up and do a number while wearing afro wigs. Yeah, you heard that right. Now, these performances, they did not go unnoticed. And one guest in particular, a very important one, had a reaction that basically turned this whole thing from just a super awkward party moment into a massive corporate crisis. So who was this guest? Well, it was none other than the bank's own CEO at the time, Tidjane Thiam. I mean, this guy was one of the most powerful people in global finance. Of course he was at the chairman's party. That was expected. What he did next, though? Definitely not expected. And to really get why his reaction was so significant, you have to understand something crucial about Tidjane Thiam. He wasn't just any CEO. At that time, he was the only black chief executive leading a major global bank. The only one. And that context is absolutely key to what happened next. So can you imagine? He sees these performances, and according to reports, he makes this silent but incredibly powerful move. He just gets up and walks right out of the room. It was a personal response, sure, but it was about to have huge public consequences for the whole bank. And here's another little detail that makes this even more telling. A friend of Thiam's later said that he never even got a personal apology. Now remember that, because it's going to stand in pretty sharp contrast to the very public, very formal statement the bank was getting ready to release. Okay, so that brings us to the bank's official response. The story breaks, it's out there, and now Credit Suisse has to scramble. They've gone from trying to manage a private mess to trying to control a public firestorm. And the statement they put out, wow, it's kind of a masterclass in corporate PR speak. You've got the carefully worded apology, right? Sorry for any offense caused. But then look closer. They immediately distance themselves. They say, hey, the bank and the chairman, we didn't organize the party, basically pinning it on an outside vendor. It's that classic move, apologize but don't actually take the blame. But of course, a statement like that wasn't going to make this go away. Not even close. The whole thing just exploded into a much bigger conversation about race, respect, and what kind of responsibility these huge corporations really have. And it spread fast. It even reached the political world. A UK member of parliament, Rushanara Ali, who sits on this important Treasury committee, came out and said she was shocked and appalled. Just think about that for a second. A private birthday party in Zurich is now being talked about in the halls of government. That's how big this got. So with all this backlash, Credit Suisse goes into full damage control mode. They start pointing to all their public diversity commitments. Look, we have a program for black talent. We signed the UK's Race at Work Charter. We have a zero tolerance policy. It was all designed to say, hey, that party was a one-off, a total mistake. It's not who we really are. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, at the time, Credit Suisse had around 48,500 employees all over the world. 48,000. And that really makes you wonder, right? How does a company that huge make sure its public promises actually match up with the real culture on the ground for every single one of those people? So when you put it all together, the party, the CEO's walkout, the public relations mess, you're left with this one really big question. And it's a question that goes way beyond just this one bank. Because what this whole incident really puts a spotlight on is the massive gap that can exist between a company's stated values, all the stuff they put on their website, and its actual internal culture. The stuff that happens behind closed doors, what's considered okay, especially among the people at the very top. And that's really the question I want to leave you with. When a company's public promises on diversity clash with what's happening in private, which one tells the real story? Is it the polished corporate values on the website? Or is it the unguarded actions of its leaders? It's something to think about for sure.